Whenever I heard that taxes in America were lower than Europe and Australia, I thought it was a bit of a stretch. The top federal income tax is 37%, whereas it was 45% in Australia, Germany, and France, and 43% in Italy. Those few percentage points always seemed a bit of an extra and not an actually significant tax difference, but boy, was I wrong. The key difference is not in the maximum rate, but at what point that rate actually started to apply. So I'm going to show you some tax rates that I found. First is Germany. It starts at 0% until 11, then after 11 until 66 it goes gradually from 14 to 42, and it stays at 42 for a while until almost 280, and then after 280 it's 45%. So C42 is not that much more than 37% in the US, but it starts really early. It starts at 66,000 euros. Now going to France. France is actually a little bit better than Germany, which was quite surprising to me. So up to 11,000, it's 0%. Then it's 11% until 28. Then 30% until 78. 41% until 168, and 45% after 168. So you see, for the large amount of between 78 and 168, it's already at 41%. But at least until 78, it's just 30%. So let's see how other countries compare. This is Italy. It's the simplest one I found. It's under 28, it's just 23%. Between 28 and 50, it's 35, and then above 50, it's 43%. This is by far the highest one if you compare it to like other ones, because it starts at 50,000. This is really early. So it's not 45%, but it still starts really early. And they don't have apparently a part of the income that is not taxed at all. It starts at 23%. So that's a little bit insane as well. Australia is a little bit better. Now, this is in Australian dollars, so obviously it's going to look like they pay like less taxes, but you have to remember, if you convert it to euros, it's more or less about the same. So 0% into $18,000, which is about 12,000 euros, so not too different from the other countries. Between 18 and 45, it's 16%, then up to 30% until 135,000 a year, then up to 37%, up to 190,000 a year, and after 190, it's 45%. So yeah, this would be the maximum for the US at 37% here, and it already starts at 135 Australian dollars, which is probably a little less than 100,000 US dollars. And now let's compare it to America. So America is actually insane in that sense, because it starts at 10%. There's no exemption like in most of the other countries, but it starts at up until 11,600. Then it's 12% until 47,000. Remember, 50,000 is the maximum income bracket for Italy, and it's still only at 12% for the US. Then it goes up to 22%, then 24, and the 24% is already all the way up to 191. So you could be making 191,000, and you would be paying a maximum tax rate of 24, and effective of probably less in the US. And then in all the countries, 190 is already above 45% here. Let me see. Yeah, for Italy, you would be paying well over into the top bracket. In France as well, over into the top bracket, it starts at 177, so we would already started. And in Germany also, yeah, you would still be in this almost top bracket of 42% as well. So going back to America, it only starts at 32% after 191, goes until 243, and then it goes up to 35%, up to 600,000. So the actual top marginal tax rate is only above $609,000 a year, which is a lot of money. And then again, it's still below the 45, 43, 42 that is the top for the other countries. So this in turn makes for this graph over here, where the bottom 50% make around 10% of the total income, and they only pay 2% of the total tax. Between 25% and 50,000 and 50%, which is around 50 to 100,000 a year, that is 18% of all income earned, but only 8% of the income tax paid. Between 96 and 173, that's already 19% of all income earned, but still only 13% of tax paid. And then from 5 to 2%, that's when they actually start paying a little bit more in taxes percentage wise than they actually earn. So they earn a total of 16% of their income, and they pay around 20% of the taxes. And then the top 1% is actually accountable for a quarter of all income. But 46%, that is almost half of all taxes. You can clearly see here that contrary to Europe and Australia, which tax the middle class a lot, America really is a country that's almost entirely sustained by taxes on the top 1%. Like it's half on the top 1%, and then another half on literally everyone else. And so this is what ends up happening. So I was reading this article here, and based on the government's forecasts, estimates, those earning $1 million or more in 2024 would pay an average of about this amount in federal taxes, which is about 475 times what America's taking 50,000 to 100,000 would be paying. But yeah, it really is a system where you only start paying taxes once you actually start making a lot of money, which is why the average tax rate effective is actually pretty low. So this one is effective tax rate. It is in the brackets itself. It's when you add up what you're paying on your lower part of the income and on the higher part of the income, what percentage of your total income is actually being taken. And for the bottom 50% of US payers, it's an average of 3.3%, which is insanely low. For the top 50%, it goes up to 16% of total income, 18, 21, 23. And it's interesting because even at the top 1%, which, like I said, pay 46% of all the taxes, they still pay all that, but only at a average tax rate of 25.9%. So yeah, it's a very interesting system. It made me change my opinion, let's say, on the US actually being a fairly low tax country, which I didn't think it was.